We're back. It's still the Breakfast and Plus TV Africa time to look at the headlines on the front pages of today's national dailies with expert analysis from Kehinde Nwandu, who joins us live from his location. He's a chartered mediator and conciliator for the purposes of the press. He's our guest analyst for this morning. Chris, good morning to you, and thanks for your time.
Good morning. Thank you for having me this morning.
All right. And should I say Eka Rosa? Yes, sir. Now you talk about yes, indeed. Our local. Yes. It's your time. I hope I got it right. Anyway, let's get things going with a look at the stories on the front page of the Nation, the headlines. The Nation newspaper, I think they've still reserved some space for the PDP as usual. But the big one there, women, farmers, artisans, others unite for Tinubu. I don't expect the paper to do anything other than this. Women, farmers, artisans, others unite for Tinubu. Marafa Eyibo, sure of victory for APC, presidential candidate next year. More from the Nation, CJN to election tribunal judges. Don't be reckless. COP27, UN unveils $3 billion plan to achieve early warning systems. I will reclaim my mandate, says Governor Oyetola. $50 million Gavi grant for 8 states to strengthen vaccination. All right, $50 million Gavi grant for 8 states to strengthen vaccination. Buhari ready to intervene in ASU's half-salary matter, says Baja Bia Miller. And nobody can break our ranks. Wike Otom Makinde insists. This is on, I think we should call it the PDP segment of the Nation newspaper. Nobody can break our ranks. Wike Otom Makinde insists. To hell with Atiku. And anyone supporting him, you should go and tell him. Anybody supporting Atiku is an enemy of Benue. My people are being killed, and you want me to be quiet? It's what the paper says. The Nation doing everything to make us see that there is fire on the PDP mountain. Over to the Punch. Some interesting stories. 2023 elections. INEC laments tough times. A flood overruns 20 INEC buildings. Chairman seeks new offices. Agency grapples with 600 cases in court. Wants new equipment. More from the Punch. COP27. Buhari seeks G7 support. Terror, UK warns citizens to avoid 22 states. And Bauchi governor demands Atiku apology. Why North is wrong about restructuring Ezefe. He's still as bearded and as white as ever. And more from the Punch. Suspense as ASU Exco meeting runs into midnight. Well, it's 7:32 a.m. Do they have a decision? Low enrollment, migration, flooding hurt Ogun Village schools. And LASMA can't arrest motorists on roads without signs. Commissioner. LASMA can't arrest motorists on roads without signs. Commissioner. And of course, there's a picture there with the headline, Day 138, daughter in court. Ekweremadu still imprisoned. The Ekweremadus are going through a lot. This is a daughter. I don't know if she's been able to get, her surgery done, and if she's okay now, but I can see that they're going through a lot right there as a family. Let's go over to the Daily Trust with the headlines. A big one there. Armed groups. Kwankwaso joins to be in dialogue as Tinubu Atiku unveils strategies. All options open to Asiwaju Keyamo. I will tackle agitations with government of national unity, former VP, that's Atiku. Don't negotiate with terrorists, ex-AIG. It's campaign gimmick, retired military official. More from Daily Trust. Half salary, Baja Biamila says. FG acted on law as ASU holds emergency meeting. Nigeria's Eurobond prices rebound in fresh week. Abuja-Kaduna train service to resume this month. FG. 2 TikTokers bagged 20 lashes to clean toilets. So posting Ganduje sleeps a lot. When I saw that headline, I thought it was maybe from Saudi Arabia. Only to see that it's from our own very dear Kano State. NCC targets more after earning 220 billion naira from FG or 5G auction. Several killed as Army youth clash in Imo. And final from the paper, Daily Trust, CJN to judges, don't betray Nigerians' trust on 2023 election matters. We're battling 600 pre-election cases, INEC. That's a lot. And finally, this day has these headlines. The big story there. Viewers rate Arise presidential town hall high. Set agenda for candidates. Urge others to honor invitations to address public. Nigerians divided over performance of key presidential hopefuls. Is this a case of writing your own story to avoid the dangers of not writing your story? I don't know. I guess to tell us more. Security strategy against non-state actors yielding results, says Monguno. PDP, PCC, why Tinubu is running from national debate. Should they be telling us why Atiku wasn't there? PDP crisis, I won't support Atiku's presidential bid, says Otoma. Some headlines on the front page of this day. I think we can start with this particular one from a sister station, or we should say Echo TV station in Nigeria on this day. Kehinde Nwandu, is this day being a member of the Arise television media family? Is this, the paper writing or the group, the media group writing their own story and crafting their own narrative? Or do you think that, yes, indeed, that presidential town hall should be rated high, going by what happened there?
Well, it should be. Nigerians were well educated. I was well informed. And I also like the performance of those that attended. The vice presidential candidate of the presidential candidate of the PR, presidential candidate of Labour, and that of NPP. If you complain about their performance, then you can ask yourself, what of those that didn't attend? So we are good enough, and it's just that the only issue is that that town hall meeting centered on only two sectors, that of security and the economy. Probably in subsequent ones, other socio-economic and political activities will be added. But it was a nice one, and also see from the debate the focus and the mindset of the presidential candidate and what they intend to do. In terms of management, of the program, good enough. I would score that good. The anchor tried, although at a point was losing control of the destiny. But in as much as it's Arise Television, I will expect that next time the television stations should also invite broadcasters from other stations or journalists from other stations or newspapers to add to that, so that they can make it really much richer in terms of conversation, if you understand what I mean. Because from point, some people feel that one of the reasons why the presidential candidate of the APC didn't attend, because they feel that Arise TV and this day newspaper is anti-APC. That is the feeling. And that from the grapevine, that was why they did not send the representative. So they are giving flimsy excuses on why they didn't. But for me, it was like taking Nigerians for granted. Every opportunity given presidential candidate should be taken, so that, because that is the only way you can tell Nigerians what you can do, and rub minds with your fellow presidential candidates, so that Nigerians can have informed decision on issues as far as the 2023 presidential elections. For them to have boycotted it and not given any reason for boycotting immediately, because the candidate of the PRP, Kola Abiola, was not supposed to be on the bill from the onset. It was when the Arise realized that Tinubu would not be coming, that was when they now opted Kola Abiola to be part of that. And when you see the statement issued by the APC spokesman or spokesperson in the person of Bartels, it was so watery I wonder why he even issued such a statement. He would rather have kept quiet rather than issues. But all in all, it was a good outing, and I praise this day and Arise for making that attempt and giving Nigerians the opportunity to listen to and watch some of these presidential candidates. I hope that the next one we have people like Showere and rest of other political parties, and so that they can also give Nigerians and tell Nigerians what they need to hear.
All right. Some feel that because I had a conversation on this last night, that the station is a biased station, and the fact that they allowed the Atiku Okowa thing happen, where the vice presidential candidate and running mate on a PDP presidential ticket, governor of Delta State, Ifeanyi Arthur Okowa, was allowed to mount the stage with presidential candidates, that it showed a high level of bias in favor of the People's Democratic Party. I mean, I spoke to some members of the public on a media program last night who said, that the station is PDP, that Tunduka Ogbagbena is a card-carrying member of the PDP, or is a PDP man, that Reuben Abati is a card-carrying member of the PDP, so they came there with a PDP agenda and they favored the PDP. In fact, some were swearing, that this was the plan all along, and they pointed out to the fact that, a certain candidate was allowed to be the last to answer questions. So he listened to what everybody had to say, and then after he listened to them, he would now be able to take what they've said and now come up with something good. So some people said it was a failure. Some segment of the public, because of the whole PDP thing going on. So do you agree with that?
I don't tend to agree with that. Kofi is a joint ticket. The vice president and the president are the same. If the president is not president candidate, the vice president should represent it. We are talking of the ones that sent the vice presidential. I'm asking you, what of the one that neither said the presidential candidate and vice presidential candidate or representative, which is worse? And it is known that Atiku is not in the country. Atiku, I think, is in the US or somewhere. And probably in terms of logistics, it was not necessary for him to attend. You have seen the former ones that was organized by ICANN and some other LCC and some other, where the vice presidential candidate of the APC attended. Tinubu never attended anyway. He didn't attend that. His vice presidential candidate attended. The only one that he had was the one that he organized by his aides in Lagos, where he spoke to certain business executive and the community. That was all. Tinubu never attended anyone. So I don't see, personally, I don't just take, I'm a journalist. I don't tend to believe such things. Even if it were, there were also some television stations that are owned by other politicians. We can start counting them if you want us to. So can we also be saying, we've seen what has been happening in those television stations, and they're kind of editorials. We are talking of the Nation newspaper now, and you said aptly that you expected the headlines, and what they got that is only projecting APC in their cover, and talk somewhere around the bottom stories concerning other political parties like PDP and rest of them. If you are going to talk about the right about PDP, there's always negative part of the story. So that is how we roll in Nigeria. And don't forget also, even in the United States, don't forget that the so-called the CNN as a station, people say it's pro-Democrats, and Fox News is pro-Republicans. You can never see any Democrats going to Fox TV, Fox News for debate and rest of. But as I said, from an unbiased mind, that was a very, very solid debate. There's no perfect debate, as it were. You hold it 100 times in other places too. There will always be that element of bias from certain people, depending on where you're looking. But I didn't see anything PDP, PC, or whatever. It was well managed. And it wasn't that I watched that debate from the beginning to the end. There was no time that we were always allowing the PDP candidate to speak loud. It's not true. There have been instances where they say, oh, Governor Okowa, can you take this question? He starts first. They were rotating it. At times it could be what's his name, Kola Abiola, it could be P2P, and this. And you also saw what found out where Dino was trying to constitute a nuisance, and the P2P has to call him to order. So, but Basically, did we hear what we want to hear? Yes. Did they give us what we need to hear? Yes. Was it enough? I don't think it was enough. And there will always be room for more engagement as we move towards 2020.
All right. Another one from the paper, you touched on this a bit, is the PDP Presidential Campaign Council saying why Tinubu is running from national debate in their words, because the headline says, on this day, PDP PCC, why Tinubu is running from national debate. So I'm sure they'll be looking at the fact that the man has not just been absent from this Arise News Town Hall, series, but also from other engagements like the NBA event, even the LCC one. Someone just reminded me yesterday that the date he requested for to engage with the Lagos State Chamber of Commerce in the industry, that date has passed, and that event has not held. So do you agree that the man is running away from debates? Of course, like you said earlier, the spokesperson for the presidential campaign of the APC had given some reasons, why the man wasn't there.
Well, as a communication strategist, you can always find your strategy or how you want to project your candidates or who you are presenting. I think the APC campaign team were just trying to be strategic in their way, not necessarily exposing their presidential candidate. It could be that for whatever reason. Don't forget that in recent time, the few ones that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu attended, there are so many gaps. He spoke about the issue of the climate change, where he's comparing the Pope and poison, what do you call it now? I can't remember what it was. And after that, there are also some other ones where he had said certain things that ordinarily he wouldn't have said, where he also talked about trying to eulogize the governor of Kaduna State. He said something else, then he meant something else. So they are trying to manage the crisis. And whatever he talks, you see that all over social media, they pick it up and try to lose the narrative. So they have been strategic enough, not exposing him. But this is he's not the first person. President Muhammadu Buhari never attended any presidential debate, either in 2015 or in 2019. He never did. And he went on to win the presidential election. So APC has this kind of attitude, believing that they can go to the poll without talking to the people, if that is the case. Because if you look at what happened, it was learned that Tinubu, and there have been pictures to show that Tinubu, rather than attending the debate, was somewhere in Niger, either seeing farmers or attending the birthday of one of his friends in Abuja or wherever. And that shows you how they're taking this for granted. But as I say, it could be strategic on their part. And Festus Yamo has come out to say that they may not be attending all the debates or practically all the debates or some of the debates as it were. And I think that they think that they have everything in the bag and they are ready to go to the poll and believe that they get. That is not the way, because the people that you need to talk to them. Although they believe that those that watch, that most of the times that people that vote are not those watching television, that those that vote are the ones in the rural area, that we are too elitist, that on the day of election that most elites don't come out to vote. So they are concentrating on the grassroots. But for me, that is not a good strategy. But whether it will work for them, let's wait and see from 2023.
All right. Yesterday, the spokesman, I believe, or the Director General, I should say, of the Obidati campaign organization, Donye Okupe, I don't know if he still occupies that position, at least came out, and there was some controversy. He has addressed a press conference. He says that the presidential candidate of Labour Party will not be attending debates unconditionally from now on. It seems like they've looked at what happened, his performance that day, the performance of likes of Okowa and others, and what played out, with the back and forth between Obi and Dino Melaye, and probably have said, okay, maybe it's not a good strategy for Obi to be on the stage with people who are not presidential candidates. He must share the limelight with Atiku and Tinubu, so that it doesn't seem like he's below them. So what's your take on this? Okupe is saying that the Labour Party presidential candidate will not attend debates if his counterparts in other parties do not show up. Remember, in 2019, Atiku came for the national debate, the main one. Buhari wasn't there, and Atiku went home after greeting everyone who was there.
It depends on how you look at it. From their strategy point, they believe that attending, don't forget that we have been seeing this as a three-horse race. Although some believe that with Kwankwaso in the mix, it might just come like a four-horse race. But for me, it still is a three-horse race between APC, PDP, and Labour Party. And so if there's going to be any kind of debate, then I should believe that all the presidential candidates should be in place. And so if the Obi camp think that they will not be able to attend if the other two candidates are not attending, all well and good, but I would just rather think that they should use every opportunity to tell Nigerians what they want to do, irrespective of whatever. But my personal opinion is that there are so many of these debates. Why don't we just harness everything and just have a single debate, like we have in one single national debate like we have in the US? If you see when they are doing their presidential debate, all stations, all radio stations, all TV stations collapsed into one. And you have a very, very, not every TV station, you don't having their own PlusTV going to have theirs, another station, because these guys will be busy at this time, and they'll be moving around. They're supposed to cover 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. So you could see that they have a very, very busy schedule. Why don't we just have one? A full debate, probably twice, two for presidential candidates and one for the vice presidential candidates, where we now have all the stations under one come together and have that debate. I will expect where we have BON, where you have NGA, Guild of Editors, Nigerian Union of Journalists, the three basic bodies that regulate journalism in Nigeria. And I also have some non-governmental organization, NGOs, to also be part of that, so that everybody look forward to that particular national debate. So, but if PlusTV is to have, Arise TV is going to have, Channels is going to have, STV is going to have theirs, the TVs we have theirs, then it waters down what we're supposed to do. So I would rather that all the stations should come together and form a cohort, so that that national debate, all the necessary presidential candidates will be available. Then Nigerians will stay tuned. But if you continue to have this pocket of debate here and there, then there's tendencies that some people will not even attend, and they will give reason for not attending, and that in itself is not.
All right. Let's move over to Daily Trust. That's looked at what the leading presidential candidates, like you've called them, are saying about the security situation in the country, particularly their strategy for dealing with the armed groups that are litter the length and breadth of the country, causing, hardship and, safety issues to Nigerians. So talking about Kwankwaso, Obi, Atiku, and Tinubu. This is what the paper says. Armed groups, Kwankwaso joins Obi on dialogue as Tinubu, Atiku unveil strategies. And what it's saying is that the presidential candidate of the New Nigeria People's Party, and I'm sure you can understand that Daily Trust will lead with a northern candidate because of its tilt to not coverage of northern issues. It says the presidential candidate of the NNPP has said he will, or he would, dialogue with all groups with a view to restoring peace in all parts. And of course, the same statement came days after his Labour Party counterpart, Peter Obi, said if elected, he'll dialogue with members of the IPOB and other agitators across the country. So that's what they're saying. What are your thoughts on this issue of dialogue? We're hearing that the others are unveiling the strategies. Festus Keyamo has been speaking on behalf of Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, though I think people would like to hear from the man himself. What Keyamo says is that all options are open to Asiwaju. Maybe that's a diplomatic answer. Atiku Abubakar is said to be having his own strategy. He says he will tackle all agitations with government of national unity. Over to you.
Everything about conflict resolution is dialogue. You introduced me as a chartered mediator and conciliator. What we profess in this profession is for people to go into dialogue. It's rather to judge than war. So every avenue that comes up and you you need to dialogue with people. It helps. So I'm not surprised that presidential candidates have already said that they're rather going to dialogue than engaging in serious, in direct combat. If dialogue, we always use the carrot and stick approach. But if dialogue fails, what happens? Then you take the war to the bandits, which is why we have been saying time and time about that. The federal government to find a political solution to the problem of the Southeast, especially the issue concerning Nnamdi Kanu, who have been asked to be released by a three-man court of appeal panel judges over his arrest or abduction from Kenya and brought to Nigeria. The tension will be reduced if Nnamdi Kanu is released. And I was in the Southeast last week, and on Monday, practically all parts of Southeast was totally paralyzed. The sit-at-home is still holding in most parts of Southeast. That is killing the economic and social activities in the Southeast. And a lot of people have appealed to the president to bring to fore issue of dialogue and a much political device to be able to make sure that this was a government that some few weeks ago released so many Boko Haram terrorists that killed several Nigerians. They have been going into dialogue with most of them to put down their arms. Most governments in the north have been dialoguing with them. So many of them that were arrested by the army have been released under the guise of amnesty. And everybody was saying that, oh, of course, it happened within the Niger Delta, but it's a different ballgame entirely. So if they believe that the dialogue should be, then I believe it should be the way of. But because of that debate, if you listen to what P2P said, he says most of the problem why we are having a high level of insurgency is poverty. That if we're looking at about 30%, 35% unemployment rate in Nigeria, which basically has to do with youngsters in Nigeria, graduate and young people, then there's always the tendency that people will take to crime because an idle hand is a devil's workshop. So he said that let us work towards making sure that provide enough employment to the teeming young Nigerians, and you see that the crime rate will reduce. Whether that will happen or not, I don't know, because if you take into consideration, most of those go into banditry and the rest of them in the north, most of them are not educated, and there must be something that is driving them beyond just the mere fact that they agitate. And so the approach is right. Our military is overstretched. We don't have enough soldiers and policemen to be able to take care of the level of insecurity. I also mentioned that I was in Owerri. I was at a retreat for senior police officers from the rank of commissioner of police to the IG in Owerri. It was a 3-day retreat. And what the chief of defense staff, General Irabo, said that the military wants to go back to their primary responsibilities of defending Nigeria against external aggression, while they leave that of internal security to the police. They cannot wait to do that. And how will we be able to do that if we cannot be able to make sure that we minimize the level of insecurity across Nigeria that's practically taking over everywhere? So dialogue to me is the way to go. And any presidential candidate who push that forward and get elected should be able to see that as the first point of contact and trying to make sure that this level of insecurity that's practically affected every sphere of our human endeavor in Nigeria is brought to the minimum, barest minimum. Now you cannot move between Lagos and Ibadan. The Lagos-Ibadan Expressway is a no-go area, and people are being kidnapped on a daily basis. This was not happening before.
All right, over to the Punch. It gives some coverage to the situation in PDP. I'll look at a bit of what the Punch is saying in the nation. Atiku Abubakar is having to grapple with new trouble. This time, the Bauchi State Governor Bala Mohammed having issues with the PDP as a presidential candidate. He has said that the standard bearer of his party, Atiku Abubakar, is sidelining him and has threatened to teach him a lesson for contesting against him in the party's presidential primaries, what he's saying. So that is an issue. He's saying he's been excluded from activities of the presidential campaign office council as it relates to his office. And of course, he seems to be maybe thinking about joining the G5 to make them the G6. And as we move on from what the Punch is saying. We go over to what the Nation is saying with Atiku, Oktom, Wike, Makinde and Co. insisting that nobody can break their ranks. In fact, Oktom told Atiku to hell with you and told Benue people he's an enemy of Benue State. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, PDP is becoming what my people call Chibo and Nozo. If you understand Igbo very well, it means that a new day, another story. And that is what is happening within the people. And it's just unfortunate that they still by now cannot be able to close their ranks and work as a team so that they can be able to stand as a united force in the 2023 election. Wike and his Wike and gang. You know, we used to have Kuna the gang in the 70s and 80s. This one is Wike and gang. We are in Benue State 3 days ago on a solidarity visit to their counterparts in Benue, and it was at that forum that all those insinuations and talk. But I just believe that Governor Autumn will just calm down. The way he talks is not, I don't see him talking like a statesman. He was talking about Fulanis killing his people, Atiku being a Fulani man. He's not saying anything. He's not. And the question I ask is Atiku in charge of the security situation in Nigeria? He should pass the buck where it belongs, and that is the government of President Muhammadu Buhari. What has Atiku got to do with security? I think it's just being unfair to Atiku on that. Any person that votes for Atiku, anybody that he was calling, even the members of the National Assembly as saboteurs, those that are from the state, saying it to their face, and the way, and he was talking, I don't expect that for a person. Because as I was listening to that, I went back, there was a story in 2019, after this program, I'll send it to you, that I later read, where this same author was praising Atiku to high heaven before that, before the 2019 election, how he has helped Benue State, how he has stand with Benue State, how he has done everything humanly possible to support the people of Benue State. 4 years, 3 years after, he's turning back to say all sorts of things because of Wike and this. I don't think that is right. Then Governor of Bauchi State say he's agreed that of all the candidates that contested with Atiku during the presidential primaries, that Atiku visited everybody, that he never visited him and he's taking him for granted. But I remember that Atiku and most PDP stalwarts were in Bauchi State. I think they started that campaign, whichever rally. They had a very big rally in Bauchi State before they went to Uyo, Akwa Ibom State. So if Governor of Bauchi is saying that the Atiku has lied him, I don't know how, because that was a very, very huge rally. He was there, Atiku was there, the vice presidential candidate of the party, and so many other governors of the PDP. But this is politics, and in politics, anything can happen. Don't forget that politicians have the way of doing their things that we, the ordinary Nigerians, don't understand. And why you see them talking anyway, when it gets to the night, they meet at 12 midnight, 1 a.m. and the rest of them. You see them going back and hugging themselves and also having a nice time together. But let's just see how this pans out. But PDP has to do all humanly possible to make sure that they close their ranks, make that they bring everybody on board, so that lightning will not strike a second time on the same spot. This happened in 2015, where PDP lost about 5 governors to the APC. You remember the day of the new PDP, and that brought a colossal damage to that party, and that was part of why they lost the election. I hope they do not allow this to happen in 2023 again.
All right, very interesting. Maybe you can say, quote from the Bible, say affliction should not rise a second time for the People's Democratic Party. A very interesting one. Did you see Wike's, I think they gave him a traditional something he wore with a cap. It's interesting times. And a spare.
Yeah, before we round up, there was a survey that was released by an NGO yesterday. I'm sure, I don't know whether you've seen that. I don't see it on the cover of the papers. But it was released yesterday, led by Peter Said, former chairman of Stanbic or one of these banks. And there's this NGO that run. And they give a graphic picture of if election is held today, how it is going to pan out in 5 states. And the house a breakdown. You need to go and look for that that story and see for yourself that 2023 may just be a very unique year beyond what expectation and the prediction that a lot of people are making.
Yeah,
But we still have 3 months. That's how it goes.
Yeah, some people look at the Atero Peter side, polls and the NOI polls and say, well, the man is the one powering, one of the people powering the Obi campaign. He's so no supporter of Peter Obi's presidential ambition, and they do not want to rely on Atero Peter side's polls.
No, don't forget, I was on by NOI. I was on by NOI as well.
No, it was. So I think the first one was a collaboration. I don't know about this one you're talking about, but the first one they did was a collaboration, and people say Atiku, Atero Peter side is a person of interest in the campaign. So maybe we should look for somebody a bit more neutral. I don't know if you agree with that, but we have to go. Thank you so much for your time, Chris Kehinde Nwandu.
Thank you very much. And my regards to Messi. How about this one?
All right.
My regards to her.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll be talking about medical tourism in a matter of seconds. Please stay with us.